So we have a question from Sanjana. The question is AI really making marketers' life easy or just complicating by providing similar pattern results or content? What's your take on that? Is it helping you?
Helps me a lot. I mean, I feel like if you are in a space where you're getting, terrible content, and I mean that's because you're just not using it right, right? Like there's so many approaches to it. Like I mentioned, retrieval augmented generation, like that is heavy in part of our workflows. And like I've got a bunch of local tools that I've built just like with simple code. And I feel like right now everyone can code. And I feel like actually this is a bigger issue that I find with generative AI. We can now effectively do anything, right? Like we can make movies if we want, or we can make images that like reflect what we're talking about, but still my feeds are pretty boring. You know what I mean? Like you have all this stuff at your fingertips, but everyone is still posting the same boring stuff they were before. So I feel like it's really a force multiplier. It's allowing me to get things done faster. It's allowing me to make cooler things. And I'm working on a new album, and I've always wanted to be able to sing, and I've done it, but I'm awful at it. Now I can just make a voice with AI that sounds like a good singer. So it's like you can do anything now. If you're like, oh, the content I'm making is boring, like that is literally your fault. Or you can't describe to the LLM what you want well enough to get what you're envisioning, which goes to show like AI isn't necessarily going to take our jobs because people are so bad at communicating to get what they want to begin with. So yeah, it's helping me a lot.
Yeah, I'm with Mike. And I something that Mike said that I want to explicitly highlight is the value of learning with LLMs, right? Like I'm always very hesitant to outsource a job completely to chatbots. Like it's similar to outsourcing it to a person, right? If you just tell them, hey, write a blog article, yeah, the outcome is very uncertain. But if you ask them, hey, how like judge my writing based on, I don't know, some successful tweets or correct my spell or whatever, right? Like using it to make your work better. I think that's really the key. And in line with that, I think we often have that same mentality about LLMs as first-time founders or business people. And that what I mean is that it's they don't think about the problem they want to solve. They think about what can they do with the tools that they have. And I think that's the wrong way to think about it. That we actually want to think about it. What are the problems that I'm facing right now? And how can I use LLMs to solve some of these problems instead of what are some cool things that I could do with LLMs? And so, yeah, to reiterate that, I think there's a lazy way to use LLMs, and I think there's a sophisticated way. And I get a lot more productivity from using LLMs in sophisticated ways, and I learn things a lot faster. I'm not as technical as Mike by a long shot, but even I can now create better API calls for tools that I'm working with, or automate some basic workflows. Categorize things in sheets. I speak fluent regex now, which I wasn't used to prior, right? So the biggest gains for me come from doing technical things better and faster and automating some things at a lower level. But we're not yet at a place where we can just outsource complete jobs to LLM. And hopefully we'll never get there because I'm not sure about the outcome. And I also have a story that humans are risk averse enough to never actually do that with high stakes decisions.
So I'll be more explicit than Mike and Kevin. And I think that most marketers are not creative. They're just do stuff. And I think that's the problem. They're not creative, and they found a tool to help them just do stuff. And if you're not creative to begin with, then that's fine. You've got a tool. But if you're being creative, like Mike said, and like Kevin said, they're great things to do with LLMs. Like I don't buy stock images. I create them in LLMs. Or I don't know how to do code for Google Sheets, for example. Anything that I'm Googling and I'm like, I'm not finding the exact answer, that's a quick reminder I should just go to an LLM, and I'll do a couple of them. And I actually really like using Gemini because it has all my past history and Google's in my brain. So like it's perfect and they know exactly what I want. I can have bad prompts. But they're sort of all the same. So I can do anything. I've built some great Looker studios. I've built some great code. Anytime I'm doing anything where I'm, have to click multiple results and I'm on page 3 and I can't find what I'm looking for, that's always a reminder that there is another way to do this. And then there's creative ways to do things where you're doing multiple prompts. So I think most marketers, like I said, they're not creative. They found an assistant to write, like they were writing boring content. Here's a great tool to write more boring content. And LLMs can do so much more than that, just output content. So I think LLMs are never going to replace humans because there's always that creative layer. So yes, LLMs are going to create boring work. You know, there was before LLMs, we had Mechanical Turk, and LLMs will be Mechanical Turk. So that if that was your job, but I think anything that requires any sort of emotion or creativity, it's never ever going to go away. Like anything that requires, you know, physical work, robots are never going to be perfect. And I think that we're never going to be in a world where there's no need for humans. We're never going to be in a world where we're the matrix. We're just plugged in and like the computers are talking to each other, because there's always going to be someone that goes like one level above of like having emotion and creativity. So if you're not finding a way to be creative with LLMs, then you're not finding a way to be creative.
Well, I have a very interesting story. So last year I was visiting a client, like later part of the year, and they had a couple of hours meeting, and they were discussing, about some marketing lines for their paid campaigns, and they had like a lot of budget for that. So after a couple of hours meeting, the guy came out and he was seeing that we were meeting and we were discussing something, and he was like, "I'm not happy with the lines that I got. Right even after spending 2 hours, we do not have something interesting." And the guy who was sitting with me, he was like, "Have you tried this?" And they spent literally 20 seconds there, and the options they got, he was like, "Well, let's pick the number 3 one here." Right? And he was impressed, like, "Okay, this is the one we should go ahead with." And he was like, "Number 5 also looks good, actually." Right? So I think it's pretty good. And for us, the entire team here at Botpresso, so we consider it as efficiency weapon, and it works great for us, right? And I think I often speak with marketers on how they're using, and I hear about content production. That is, of course, one good use case, right? But there's much more you can do. So I have a lot of my teammates without any engineering background at all, and now every single day I see new Python scripts which are resolving some really, really interesting cases for us. There are a lot of micro crawlers they are writing. So recently we were crawling a website, and the use case was that we have to crawl their pages because they do not have any multilingual XML sitemap. So we had to crawl like a tiny little website, and we had to pull all the hreflang tags they have and then create XML sitemap. Now, if you think about the crawlers that we have, that we are using every single day, there is none which supports that. But then we probably just spent 30 minutes on that, and we had our crawler ready. And just one click, and in 20 seconds, 30 seconds, maximum a minute, we had the XML sitemap ready with us. So it was beautiful, very effective, and we have been like writing these Python scripts day in, day out, right? And a lot more. I mean, recently one of my teammates, he was also working on similarity. So he had a lot of pages he was trying to find duplication there, right? So he integrated a couple of libraries, cosine similarity, and then he basically found all the pages which were duplicate with a high confidence score of 90% plus. And they were like, if you look at those pages, they were exactly the same, right? So it saves a lot of time. And I think we use that AI as efficiency weapon for us, and it works like magic. So yeah, everyone who's not using it, who are not creative marketers, I highly recommend checking out different applications, play with it. You will definitely find a lot of use cases.